Hi everyone and welcome to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and today's video is all about how to use Microsoft's newest operating system, Windows 8. If you'd like to know how to install the Windows 8 upgrade, you can check out the link right there. Now most of you folks at home, if you're anything like me, are probably a typical desktop user, which means you have a desktop computer, mouse and a keyboard, and a monitor like this one, which probably is not a touchscreen monitor. I will be going into some touchscreen stuff later. I do have a touchscreen monitor that I'm going to set up. But that brings up an interesting point. Microsoft's Windows 8 is really meant to be a unifying operating system. It's supposed to take multiple devices, multiple platforms, bring them all together in the same or at least a similar user experience. So that means desktop computers, that means laptops, that means tablets, that even means smartphones. And let's just face facts. A lot of desktop users have found some of the updates to Windows 8 a little bit jarring. Most notably, the lack of a start button and the fact that with a lot of Windows 8 apps, a lot of stuff scrolls horizontally as it would with a tablet versus vertically. And while I did share many of those qualms myself, I decided to approach Windows 8 from a pragmatic perspective. The question I asked myself was, what do I use my computer for? Can I do those same things with Windows 8 and can I do them just as effectively? Those things are internet access, of course, loading my favorite programs and games, and then a third section which I'm going to call Staying Connected, in which I focus a little bit more on the Windows 8 features such as the apps and the live tiles. But first, let's log in. So here's the Windows 8 startup screen. It's just a pretty picture and you can assign that to be whatever you want. And next you're going to log in. Now if you're logging in, you can log in with a local ID, such as whatever you want to name your computer, and your user ID. But what I've done is I've set up a Microsoft account. What this will allow you to do is sync your favorites and settings across different PCs and devices, and generally do other fun sharing things such as access to SkyDrive. But of course you're going to need a password. You're going to log in like so, and then one cool thing is that you'll notice is if you log in with your Microsoft ID from different computers, you'll have a similar user experience wherever you set it up and saved it to your Microsoft ID. But here's the start screen, and we're going to start off by talking about organizing the start screen. As you can see, I've already done a bit of that. And then we'll talk also about switching between the start screen and the desktop, because that is one of the biggest things that people like to do, jump to the desktop. So first off, you'll notice I've organized everything. So I have internet access going on over here. I have some programs and games installed right there. And then on the right side I have Windows 8 apps. I also have a lot of live tiles set up here which are actively updating, downloading information from the internet, and displaying it for me. You can sort of imagine the start screen here as a graduated start menu. It's full screen, it's a little bit more active, and there's a lot of organization you can do. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be using my mouse here to show you the hot corners, because hot corners is how you access things, at least until you learn the keyboard shortcuts. So by moving the mouse in the top right corner here, it's going to pull up the Charms bar. The Charms bar will let you access a lot of stuff such as search, share, start devices, and settings. You can also go in the bottom right corner, click the little minus symbol. That will zoom out, and if you have lots of stuff, well, it will let you at least access all of them. Another cool thing that you can do right here, and it's a little bit more hidden, but is definitely a good feature, you can highlight these different columns, these groupings of applications or shortcuts that you've assigned here, and you can right-click it. When you right-click right-click, it will pop up Name Group, and actually if you're doing a fresh Windows 8 install, you'll notice none of these have titles. I find it's very helpful to title them, specifically since I'm doing a tutorial video on how to use Windows 8. Once I've named the groups, the names will pop up right here, and from there it's pretty easy to organize stuff. You'll have a bunch of stuff pre-populated in here. I've also loaded up some different programs myself, but if you want to move anything around, you just got to click it, drag it around, put it wherever you want to. It'll pop into place. You'll notice some of these are taking up a single square, some of them take up a full square. You also have the option by right-clicking on any of these to pull up a little menu at the bottom, so you can uninstall programs from there. Also, you can make the little square smaller, like so. So Wikipedia I can make smaller if I want to, or I can make it larger, take up a little bit more space. So those are sort of your customization options that you have available. Now that's all well and good since I've already gotten my applications here organized for you guys, but if you're just starting out, you might have a question. How do I find anything? If you're using Windows 7, what I would do is I'd pop up the Start menu and I'd start typing something, because it has a really good search function. That search function is still alive and well, and arguably better with Windows 8. Actually, the indexing service for Windows 8 is amazing. But from here, don't even worry about finding anything, just start typing. What do I want to do? I want to access the control panel because I want to set up my computer for the first time. So I type control, just typing anything from that initial start screen will automatically initiate a search. Over here on the right side, the search is organized, so apps, settings, and files are set up. So if you're searching for a specific file, you can jump over to files to see which files are associated with control, the word that I just typed in. Also settings will take you to some settings menus. And then of course there's also apps, and apps is where I find control panel. And by clicking on control panel, it will open the control panel in the Windows 8 desktop. Now here's our first transition from the start menu to the Windows 8 desktop. How do you switch back and forth? That's a good question. Well, to get back to the start menu, you could hit the Windows button. That'll pop it up. You could also drag your mouse over to the right side here, pop up the Charms bar, and the one right there in the middle is Start, and that will also take you back to the Start menu. And then I think that's all I wanted to show you guys for right now as far as accessing the Start menu. But how do you get back here? The keyboard shortcut I like is actually the same one I use for Windows 7, and that is Windows key plus D. That shows the desktop, just like it did in Windows 7. If you want to access the desktop from the Start menu, you can just click the desktop right here, which I've currently located under Programs and Games. That will jump over to it. You can also mouse into the top right corner. Now, this is going to access the desktop just as it would another program. Bear in mind, if you have lots of programs open, it'll actually pop up a bar here, and I'll show you that in a minute. But you can mouse up in the top left corner or the bottom left corner, and it'll pop that up, and you can, again, switch back and forth. You can access your control panel. Now, so this is more of the control panel designed for desktop users such as you and me, maybe folks who want to dig a little bit more into their computer settings, but you're probably going to be familiar with this if you're a Windows 7 or Windows user in general. In the past, there's another control panel that's for the Windows 8 UI over here, and I just wanted to show you guys how to access that as well. If we go to the settings option right down there in the Charms bar, we can see some settings here, and if we're in the Start menu, we can do some basic settings such as tiles and help. Also, here's how you'd access stuff like turning the computer off. There's your power. You can turn off the computer, put it to sleep. You can access some network settings. You can change your brightness if this is a different type of computer than this, if it's a laptop, for example. You can also access keyboard. Right down here at the bottom is Change PC Settings. And here's where you access a lot of cool stuff for Windows 8, basic PC settings for accessing the UI and whatnot. So here's where you can change your lock screen picture, change your start screen or your account picture. On the left side, you can set up users. Here is where, for example, you could switch to a local account if you don't want to use a Microsoft account, or if you're on a local account and you want to switch to a Microsoft account, you can find that right here. You also have different sign-in options. So right now we're just signing in with a password, but you can do a picture password, for example. Let me just run down the rest of these real quick. Notifications you can turn on and off. You'll notice a lot of these little on-off switches are designed for touch use. So it's not a touch screen, but you could use it as a touch screen, but you can use a mouse just as well. So here's your search options that you can turn on and off. Here's some share options you can turn on and off. There's a lot of share functionality built into Windows 8. General PC settings such as date and time. Privacy settings such as letting apps use your location to tell you location-based things. Devices, so this will show you everything that's connected to your computer. Ease of access, if you need, for instance, Windows to say the words instead of reading them off the screen. Also, syncing for different devices that you might have connected. Home group, just as it was in Windows 7, you can easily network multiple computers together in your home. And of course, the all-important Windows Update, which is really a much more of a background process as far as my experience so far with this, but you can, of course, manually go in to check for updates there. So now that we've run through some of the settings and configuration options, I'm going to go back to my initial theme, which was what do I do with my computer? And the first item on the list is going to be accessing the internets. And there's several different ways you can do that. And I want to point out here that there are different types of applications that you might have in Windows 8. There are Windows 8 apps, which right here, Windows 8 apps. And then there are also more full-fledged programs or applications or whatever word you want to use to call them. But those programs run in the desktop environment rather than in the Win 8 UI environment. So, accessing the internet, we have the built-in Internet Explorer, and by clicking this, we can access the Windows 8 version of Internet Explorer. And from here, of course, we can punch in any URL that we want to go to down there at the bottom. We have, of course, basic functions such as back and forward and all that kind of good stuff. Refresh. Down here you can pin actual sites to your Start menu, and that's how I've pinned a couple of my shortcuts over there. You can, of course, access settings, page tools, and that sort of thing. And generally, it's a very nice, clean experience, especially if you're using a touchscreen, of course, but just for basic mouse and keyboard use just as well, you can access internet through that. Now, if you want a more old-school experience, you can, of course, jump over to the desktop. Again, I did that by pressing Windows plus D. And then down here at the bottom, I've pinned some programs to the taskbar. Now, these are all Internet access programs, Internet Explorer, Chrome, and Firefox, which are very popular Internet programs. But you'll note here that when I launch Internet Explorer, it launches in its own window. So this is the desktop version of Internet Explorer versus the Windows 8 UI version of Internet Explorer. And if you like to spend most of your time on the desktop, you can. That's not a problem. You can do that here. You can launch Internet Explorer, whatever other Internet programs you want to launch. Here is Firefox, for example, loading Bing. And you can do your searches, you can find your stuff, you can browse your internets, and you can get all of that good stuff done. Now, jumping back to the Windows 8 Start menu, you'll notice over here I've pinned a couple shortcuts, and that's a really handy thing to be able to do, of course, to jump straight to that. And the way I've done that, of course, is I've just loaded up Internet Explorer, and I've used the little built-in tool down here at the bottom, Pin Site. And when you click Pin Site, you can pin it to the Start menu. You can also add it to your favorites. When you pin it to the Start menu, it'll pop up the little icon for that, and it will let you rename it if you want to. Since I've already done that, I'm going to jump back, and we can see there, Twitter. That's a shortcut. I've also put in a little shortcut for our Newegg TV YouTube channel. So by clicking on that, it pops up our Newegg TV YouTube channel, of course. Now, if you are wondering how to close Windows 8 applications, it's pretty simple, but you just want to drag from the top of the screen down to the bottom. It will make the window small. Drag it to the bottom will close it. Another cool thing you can do here is you can actually drag it to the left or drag it to the right, and that will sort of pin it in right there. Kind of shrinks it down a little bit, and then you could have something else going on right here. So if you're into multitasking, you could put up some media playing right here, and then you could be browsing the internet there. You could be doing some work over there and playing a movie right here. Whatever you want to do, but it's a nice little easy way to pin back and forth, and of course you can maximize it once again. I'm just going to close that. The Start menu pops back up, and there you have your basic internet access. Now, one thing I also wanted to point out, since we're into shortcuts here and doing things of that nature, if I'm over here and I'm using Chrome, you still have the same access to jump lists down here that you did with Windows 7. So if we wanted to, for example, go to Newegg, and we want to add that to a jump list down there, we can, of course, just as we did with Windows 7, drag the site, bring it down here, bada bing, and it pops onto the jump list as a pinned item, and we can jump up to it like that. So you still have the same functionality you did here in the desktop you did to create your shortcuts, or if you like to use Windows 8 UI, you can do that right here. Now, the next grouping in my Start menu is Programs and Games, and this is yet another fun thing that you like to do with your computer. I do too. But one thing that I've sort of separated here is Programs and Apps. Now, this isn't an official designation or anything like that. You can call a program an application or an app or whatever you want. But the Win8 apps over here are going to run in the Win8 UI, just like I showed you guys with Internet Explorer. And programs in general, these ones that I've put right here, are going to load in the desktop. So Paint, for example, if I click it, will pop over to the desktop, and then there you have Paint. Now, you have options, of course, like you do with any good computer. So, for example, I have a Win8 app over here, which is Autodesk Sketchbook, and that would load in this environment, and that's actually a pretty fun little app to use with touchscreen. I'll show it to you in just a minute. But any applications that you have installed, you can pin right there, or pin wherever you want to. Again, you can organize your desktop the way you can organize your Start menu however you want. But by grouping these over here, I know that by clicking them, it's going to pop me over to the desktop. It's going to load the application, and whether you're running Microsoft Office or some sort of productivity app, or whether you just like to play video games, I happen to have World of Warcraft on me at all times, don't ask me why, and you can play any video game that you want. I'm not going to play this game. I'm just going to agree to the license agreement, and then maybe I'll log in real quick. Maybe a quick raid. Now, one other question you might have about the programs and games that I have set up there is, well, how did they get there? Once you load any given program, depending on its compatibility with Windows 8, most Windows 7 applications are compatible with Windows 8, but you might need to locate it once you've installed it. So you can go over here to Search, and if you click the search bar, you'll immediately have all installed apps that are right there. So you'll notice here both the Win8 apps that I've installed as well as non-Windows 8 apps are all appearing right here. You also have all of your control panel / administration tools, functions like you might be familiar with right there, so you have access to those as well. So if you're really into the magnifier, for example, just right-click any of those programs and you can pin it to your taskbar, you can pin it to your Start menu. I just pinned it to the Start menu, and now we have the magnifier over there, and we can just drag it and put it wherever we want. Now, the third thing that I mentioned that I like to do with computers is to stay connected, and whether you're talking about staying connected with friends or staying connected with news, the Windows 8 Start menu has a lot of options for that, and that's being live tiles over here, Windows 8 apps over here, or sort of a combination of the two. A live tile might just be a tile that displays information, or it might actually link to a larger program that's just going to show very short bits of information right here. On the right side here, we're seeing some of the default live tiles that Windows 8 comes with. So it has a weather app built in, for example. I downloaded another weather app just so I could compare the two of them. This is the WeatherBug app that I downloaded separately. We also have information such as our stocks. We have a news feed going on right here. We have a sports feed. I downloaded the Newegg app, which is an app all in itself, but also when you put it down here, it shows up as a live tile. It's going to feed you important information such as the latest shell shocker. We have a Bing search tool right here, which is sort of a minimal Windows 8 app that you can do a search in, and then it will pop up the Internet Explorer app and run the search there. I'm sorry, that's the Bing app right here. This is a travel app, which is kind of fun if you like travel. It will show you some really pretty pictures going on. Again, horizontal scrolling, but you can still use the mouse wheel to scroll back and forth. Let me just jump back here, and then we also have Mail that I've plugged in, so you can see Mail pop up live. The cool thing about the Mail app is that it will actually show little icons on the lock screen as well. And then we also have a calendar that I've popped up, so you can have your calendar information. So right there, easy to look at. You're going to have a bunch of live information, and of course you can tailor all of that to your needs. And then you also have Windows 8 applications, and to get those, we have the Windows 8 Store. So by clicking that, it's going to pop up the store. Some very popular apps, such as the Netflix app, of course. This is a fairly early video as far as the release of Windows 8 goes, so there's going to be a lot more apps that are showing up. But we have games, we have social apps. Facebook, for example, that's going to be a popular one, I'm sure. I'm not as much into Facebook, so I didn't load it here. But we have photo apps, music and video, sports, books and reference. They've categorized all these so you can find what you want. And then once you click it there, you could pay for it if it's a paid app, or free apps will just load. So for example, I loaded the Wikipedia app. So this is not accessing Wikipedia via an internet browser. This is accessing Wikipedia via the Wikipedia app. And they've determined what information they want to feed over here. But we can see interesting information that happened on this day in years past. So now we're moving on to a slightly different setup. Hopefully you guys have gotten a good idea of how to navigate and use Windows 8 using a mouse and keyboard, standard desktop computer. Now we have sort of the best of both worlds. On the left we have our existing non-touchscreen monitor. On the right we have a full Windows 8 compatible 10-point touchscreen monitor that's made by Acer. And we've got this set up so we have two screens. Oh, whoops, wrong button. But what we have here is desktop. So this is a desktop environment across both. So as you can see, this is our main display down here with the date and time and everything. You get the taskbar on both screens, so that it's the same taskbar. It just pops up in both places, so you can, of course, do like you would normally do and pop windows back and forth. But what I really wanted to do is show you guys the touchscreen experience with Windows 8 and a touchscreen connected to a full desktop computer. So this is going to go over some of the basic commands. This is going to be much more similar to, for instance, tablet experience, but to access the Charms bar, you simply swipe in from the right side. The Charms bar, by the way, this is something I forgot I wanted to tell you guys. Windows C is a shortcut for Charms bar access. I know I'm jumping back to using a keyboard, but that's how you do that. So from here again, you can access Start to turn the Start menu on or off. You can do share devices and settings. Share, for example, is something that I hadn't mentioned before, but for example, if you have the Newegg YouTube channel up and you want to share it with people, you would have sharing apps installed. You click share, and then that will give you the sharing apps that you have available. Now right now it's just got the default mail and people apps, but for instance if you have Facebook app plugged in right there, any of the sharing apps, the Twitter app, which I was hoping to have for this one, but it's not available quite yet. They said they're working on it, but that is the sharing function. Back to the start bar right here. All your other functions available right there. And then you can also use the swiping from different sides of the screen with the touch screen. So instead of for the corners, we're going top and bottom. So as mentioned before, you swipe all the way down to move a program around. You can lock it to either side to put it in a smaller window. But also in some apps, you can swipe down a little bit and it'll pull up the extra user bar. So for when the Microsoft Explorer in Windows 8 UI, you have access, for instance, if you have multiple web pages open right there, so you can open a new web page and jump over to, oh wait, that's what we already had open. Now we have two Newegg YouTube channel is open. Nothing wrong with that. We can jump over to Twitter. There's Twitter. I should have signed in, but anyway. So there's an example of navigating around there. In just about any other application, however, you can also swipe up from the bottom, and that will also bring up your toolbar. You can see it's doing the same thing here, so let me jump over to a different app so we can try that out. Let's go over here. Oh, there's a little trick. So if you want to access this multitask bar over there that shows you all the open applications you have, if you swipe out from the left side, it's kind of like an application switcher. So you can jump in between all the applications that you might have open. If you pull it out a little bit and then snap it back to the side, it will pull out the full list. And from there you can choose whichever app you want to pull up. And I wanted to show you guys the extra toolbar that's available at the bottom. So swiping it from the bottom from just about any given application will bring you up some different options for that application. So for instance, in the Wikipedia app, that will allow you to take whatever article you're looking at and actually open up in your internet browser rather than in the Wikipedia application. Now jump back over to the Photos app just to show you guys one more example of the sort of extra access toolbar. So swiping it from the bottom here gives us some more options down at the bottom. So this is a photo application, so we can browse them by date, set up a slideshow, select all, or of course hit the import button where if we had a device plugged in such as a camera, we could import those pictures directly. But since we're using a tablet here and we don't have a keyboard and mouse attached, we're going to be completely relying on the touchscreen interface. And for that, you might be more more comfortable using the Windows 8 UI, which is right over here. Now, a few different things just for navigation here. Of course, you can horizontally scroll through all of your Start menu stuff that you have going on right there. If you pinch in, you can zoom out and you can see all of them side by side. So if you end up with a lot of different programs installed, you can easily access all of them. Now, the big difference here between Windows 8 RT, which is more designed specifically for tablets and non-x86 hardware, is that with the full version of Windows 8, you're going to have a lot more productivity applications. So here we have the whole Microsoft Office suite that's pre-installed. And that is going to wrap up this tutorial video on how to use Windows 8, whether you're using a desktop computer with a mouse and keyboard, whether you're using a touchscreen monitor, or whether you're using a tablet. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, you can find more on our Newegg YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe while you're there. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.